I'll start. So I think we're almost ready to start, everyone. Welcome. Just while we're waiting for the last few people to join us, if I could just ask the conference organisers to play the video that I think is ready to go. And then we'll start into the session after that. Thank you.
The 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami was a wake-up call to the world. 230,000 people killed. $10 billion in damages. Almost no early warning systems, EWS, in place. In response, the world established the Indian Ocean Tsunami Warning System. Today, warning centres in the Asia-Pacific and beyond protect millions. Yet gaps remain. Many communities are still left unprotected. 2/3 of Asia-Pacific countries report having multi-hazard EWS. But few reach those most at risk, including in small island states, metropolises and rural communities. We have the knowledge and technology, but we need investment to expand end-to-end inclusive coverage. Investing in EWS is a cost-effective method of protecting lives. Every US dollar invested in EWS saves up to $13 in disaster response and recovery. Comprehensive EWS can reduce disaster losses by 30 to 50%. Advanced EWS can reduce disaster-related deaths by up to 8-fold. It's not just about warnings, it's about risk knowledge, monitoring and forecasting, communication, preparedness to respond, anticipatory financing, and early actions. The Secretary-General's Early Warnings for All initiative calls for universal coverage. And the Asia-Pacific can lead the way by scaling up EWS for all hazard. We know the solutions, now let's invest in them. Together, we can ensure every community is protected from the next disaster. Early warnings for all.
Thank you. So welcome everybody to the last session on day 4. So well done to everyone for making it to this point. Hopefully everybody has still some energy left for what I hope will be some very fruitful discussions today. So I'll introduce myself first of all. My name is Helen Cahy. I work as a Deputy Chief Meteorologist with the Met Office in the UK, but I work on our Weather and Climate Information Services Programme for Asia and the Pacific. So along with my co-moderator today.
Good afternoon. I'm Senaka Basnaika from Asian Disaster Preparedness Center, which is based in Bangkok, Thailand. How do you?
Thank you. So hopefully, as we've seen from the videos, and I think all of us in this room agree that obviously early warning systems are critical for reducing disaster risks and the impacts from them. So in this session, it's forecasts, warnings and user engagement. And I think it links really nicely to the previous session that we had where we started to really explore some of that need around the need to co-produce and co-deliver a lot of these solutions for them to be truly effective. So the aim of this session is that we'll hopefully have the opportunity to further discuss the challenges, the opportunities, and the needs that there is for us to really institutionalize this user engagement right from the outset. This includes the role of the National Hydrological and Meteorological Services, but it also then includes the support against the governments, for NGOs, the private sector, and humanitarian actors as well. So hopefully, through this afternoon, we'll give a voice to many of those and give the space to engage in some conversations around that. So we have a diverse range of users and what it requires for them to tailor the message to them. So we want to really focus on sharing stories of where users have been effectively engaged and where warnings have worked to reduce the impacts experienced. Obviously, the need for this is going to increase under a changing climate to ensure that we have that resilience and that sustainable development approach. So hopefully we'll hear from some of the examples how that meaningful engagement can really then help to deliver those early warning services to the most vulnerable in the communities. So we're going to split this session into two parts. So while I'm introducing the first part, I'll invite the presenters to come up. But we're going to have 4 presentations initially. So the first 3 will be from the National Hydrological and Meteorological Services. So we have Mr. Lorenzo Moron from the Philippines, Pagasa. We have Mr. Salipa Mulutau from Samoa, and Mr. Karma Dupchu from Bhutan. And then we'll also hear as well from the Cyclone Preparedness Program in Bangladesh, Mr. Amadul Haq. So would the presenters like to make their way to the stage? Thank you. Okay, so to start us off then, from the Philippines, we have Mr. Lorenzo Moron. So he is the Weather Services Chief of the Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration, PAGASA. And he's going to present to us today on impact-based forecasting and warning, a case study of Super Typhoon Karina. So how they worked with the local government units to respond to the warnings. So thank you.
First off, I would like to take this opportunity to give recognition to my partner, Makati City, for helping me out in this presentation.
So can we get the first presentation onto the screen? Sorry, just bear with us 1 second. We'll hopefully get the first presentation. There we go.
Next slide. We know for the fact that despite the next slide.
Do we have click? Let's
We know for the fact that despite the forecast accuracy, the emergence of sophisticated numerical models, and in fact the competency of technical personnel, the technology that we have, still we have the very question, why do good forecast result in poor response? And you know, information when not understood is useless. Next slide. Let's take, for example, the Typhoon Haiyan, that despite the accuracy and reliability of warning information that PAGASA provided to the general public, still the National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council recorded substantial amount of damage to infrastructure and agriculture. The question there is, were our forecasts really enough, or probably the impacts were not properly considered, such that actions were inadequate or insufficient? So 2 basic issues of early warning systems here. 1, difficulty in accessing or understanding alerts. And the second one, there is lack of understanding on what actions to take once the alert is received. That is why we really need to translate science into action by way of transforming from what the weather will be into what the weather will do. From the science, we'll have to deal with associated hazards, say for example the storm source flashlight, and then we'll try to estimate the risk, and therefore we'll be estimating the potential impact. And therefore our local responders will be able to institute appropriate response mechanism relative to the potential impacts that it might affect the communities. Okay, so we'll do that. We did this through a risk-based approach by integrating hazard, exposure, and vulnerability to be able to, estimate the risk and therefore the potential impacts to the community in terms of the number of populations, infrastructures, and all other sectors. Okay. So for several case studies already, at least for Metro Manila, we did this for several tropical cyclones over the past years. And then let's take, for example, the recent Super Typhoon Karina, although it did not make direct landfall to the Philippines, but because of the enhancement of the southwest monsoon, it induced substantial amount of damage to infrastructure. It was actually the third tropical cyclone which entered PAR, and it recorded 185 kilometers per hour of maximum sustained winds. And although it made a loop in Taiwan, but as what I've mentioned, it basically enhanced the southwest monsoon. So this records, at least for Metro Manila, recorded more than 300 millimeter of rainfall in a day, and we have massive floodings that were recorded on the ground. So we'll deal now with the impact-based warnings that we issued to Metro Manila. So this is the series from July 20, July 21, 22, 23, and you see how we elevate the warnings from yellow, orange, red, and eventually red. So we disseminate these warnings to our group chat in Metro Manila. We have close partnerships and collaborations with various local government units here, and we have some representatives in various LGUs here. So once we provide the warning, they will now, at least for Makati City, it's now their responsibility to interpret the warnings and provide necessary response according to the severity of the warnings or the impacts that it may pose. Okay, just like for this example, days in advance when we provide the warning, already the Makati Council convened to discuss risk assessment and response actions to take. So they are doing it either in a face-to-face basis or even on online basis. So they have council members that discuss sector-specific responses. Okay, so every time we provide them the warning, they will have to localize the warning. And you see, they are already integrating the impact-based information into their localized early warning information by providing expected impacts and even the suggested response. So they are now integrating this into their local early warning services, and they have to discuss this among their council members to be able to institute appropriate response mechanism. And they will have to disseminate this to their local constituents whenever they have certain level of actions that they will have to undertake. Okay. So because of the proactive approach, integrating impact information into their discussions, they are able to set up evacuation centers and preposition rescue facilities actually days in advance. And because they already have the knowledge of what impacts that they are going to experience. And as far as the ground impacts are concerned, so these are some of the records or the observations that have been recorded by the LGUs. So they see that because of the information that is already actionable, so their local constituents now are trying to shift their minds from the usual way of thinking into triggering the way they do their usual practices in as far as local response is concerned. Okay. So utilization of IBF products, integration into city's local early warning services. One, the IBF products integrated into the city's long-term plans, especially in hydromet contingency plans and the public service continuity plan with the guidance of PAG-ASA. So we work closely with them, and they conduct community-based workshops. They did this in June to August 2023 and recently in August 2024. Enhancing AWS policies and protocols, including ensuring appropriateness of IBF warnings products to provide accurate, timely, and effective early warnings for the public and constituents. So this is the overall mechanisms of how they do the impact-based assessment or systems in Makati City by way of providing the guidance that we give for Metro Manila. So of course, The LGUs have already prepared their data in terms of exposure and vulnerability and the hazard being provided by the mandated agency such as PAGASA. So once the data are already in place, they will try to assess the level of risks and of course the evaluation of the potential impacts. So by then, they will have to raise awareness on risk and early warning systems through strengthening dissemination and communication, and eventually coming up with early action and early response by supporting national and community emergency response. So these are just some key takeaways of Makati City on the implementation of IBF implementation. It is the way we promote science-based community and community-based approach. So the way we do our decision making is being inclined with the way we assess the science. Okay, and then it encouraged participation among their not only the city councils but even their local constituents themselves. Of course, the system approach, by integrating the new system into the way they are already, into the way they have been accustomed to in as far as their local DRRM is concerned, aligning with national and international frameworks, and of course, encouraging feedback mechanism to be able to, improve more on the way they do their local early warning services. And overall framework, we know that prevention and mitigation or early warning services play a big role in the totality of the DRRM framework under the prevention and mitigation. So once we provide these early warning systems that is not the traditional one, but is already people-centered early warning system, then I think we are supporting strengthening disaster risk reduction management council, and we can say that the realization of our dreams in making the community resilient to natural hazards is not so far away. With that, thank you very much. This is just the last slides, I think. So IBF makes information actionable. It triggers early and anticipatory action, and it enables humanitarian intervention. Let's support impact-based forecasting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lawrence, for encouraging presentation. And it's good to learn that your IBF you have been implementing and you have been piloting, and now not only piloting, actually maybe scaling up and scaling out to other regions. So good example we have seen from Makati City, and integration into local DRM plans as well. Yeah, with that, let's invite the second speaker, Mr. Ahmadul Haq, who is the Joint Secretary as well as the Director, Cyclone Preparedness Program of Bangladesh. He is representing Ministry of Disaster Management. As you all know, that Cyclone Preparedness Program, CPP, it has been in the region with us more than 50 years or so. I think we will hear more from him now from 1970s after maybe the Cyclone Bola. So with that, I will give the floor to you. Vice Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Basanta. I will show another case that is actually encouraging for our early warning and anticipatory action community. This is the case when a warning was accurate and impacted, helped actually anticipate impacts, reduce damage, and prepare communities. Yesterday, I presented another study on this very cyclone Mocha that was focusing on actually anticipatory action, community engagement, and more specifically women role. Today, this presentation will focus on accuracy of early warning, and I will try to link it with our newer early warning for all intervention. Next, please. The cyclone Mocha, it happened in our country middle of the May 2023. The most important message from that, we only had 36 hours from deep depressions to very severe cyclonic stage. But our formal response case, we got only 30 hours from declaring the cyclonic storm that is Cyclone Mocha. So it was very challenging for the management as we got a very less reaction time, but the accuracy and anticipation helped us. That made the result. Just Basanta said, oh, what we experienced in 1970, 1 million death, similar type disaster. But this case, what we got, 0 casualty. Next, please. What is the power of anticipation? In the bottom line, there are the 3 pillars we identified. Mainstreaming in our Bangladesh disaster risk reduction system, and we have a specific early action protocol that worked in this very cyclone. Then sector-specific actions, and that they help the proactive early warning. Then proactive evacuation will show some picture of the evacuation statistics of some, and anticipatory action saves lives. And government and all other stakeholders, that is all of society approach. And with the business community, the very affected area is Cox's Bazar. It is a tourism area, so hotel, motel owners also helped us. Next, please. There is the success of early warning and anticipated action. Early warning, the main thing, the early warning was in time, disseminated well, connected with the early actions. This actually brought very good result. The evacuation covered all at-risk people and sheltered in time. And third part I have said just about the resources. Government along with Red Cross, Red Crescent movement and our UN partners, particularly WFP, helped us more. And we had a very good strategic planning. Next, please. How early warning impacted. We got the early warning message from our Met agency in time, days before, though I have said we got just 36 hours, and for particular response we got 30 hours. But we got earlier forecast from the Met agency. We must be thankful they gave us earlier time. And communication worked well through mobile alerts, megaphone and radio, and of course the visibility. You can see in the picture, the flag easy, understandable and visible flags are there, and my very organization worked with, in that time, worked with 76,000 volunteers. Next, please. How evacuation a lifesaver? I've said Cox's Bazar was the hot spot. We could manage to evacuate 700,000 people just in 6 to 8 hours. And another challenging actually landfall point was the St. Martin Island. It is a very remote island, very small and very risk of storm surge. We are predicting 20 to 30 feet storm surge over the island. And the main end, again, we had only 3 formal shelters. So we have to evacuate all the people stayed there in hotel, motels, cottages, etc. We could arrange 37 makeshift shelters. And another huge challenge, you might have known about the Rohingya communities. We termed as forcibly displaced Myanmar people, nationals. They are 1 million in the way of cyclone, just in the way of cyclone. And risk is that we don't have permanent shelter, and we couldn't make it because they are to be repatriated. So in national policy, we couldn't make any permanent shelters. So we have to rescue them. Through their preparedness, we gave a national DRR system and we gave ownership to them, and we could arrange some actually locally adaptable sheltering system, tie down kits and etc. And we must pray to Allah, saved us. Anyway, the result we have found, 0 casualty. Next, please. This is actually achieving zero is actually a dream for us. We just shown a 7-digit. And in 1991, that was 100,000, 150,000. So it was dream, but achievement is not a magic. Just act early and empower the community, empower the people. And at the right side, I have said, correctly said, better early warning, anticipated reaction, communities-driven efforts, whole of society approach. That's the actually theory of success. Next, please. This is actually, I want to link to sustain this scenario and how can we do better in future. So early warning for all is the best tool we have. So we can capitalize this through streamlining multi-hazard early warning system. How it can help to improve our forecasting and communications. Then early action protocols, we just talked about early action protocol. We already drafted or already implemented this Cyclone early action protocol, and another we have also implemented this for flood, and some few are coming, heat wave and something like that. And expanding communities' reach and accessibility. This is very important. Inclusivity and access. Many people still is out of reach, out of communication and everything. And most importantly, the seagoing fishermen. Still we are striving to reach them. So this early action protocol, early warning for all, can help us reaching the seagoing fishermen. We have already talked with BIMSTEC, ESCAP, to make a common early action protocol in the Bay of Bengal for the 6 nations, Bangladesh, Myanmar, India, Thailand, Sri Lanka, all are surrounding the Bay of Bengal. So we should a common early action protocol, common rescue system, and at least 6 language early warning messages should be broadcasted simultaneously. Then community engagement and some other things. Next, please. The enhancing DRM capacities, it is also important, data sharing, integration, etc. We are all talking about that, training and capacity building. And the final one is very important, adaptation to climate change. How early warning can help our long-term adaptation. I just attended a meeting with SRSG about the Sendai Framework Monitoring. He asked me, early warning message, early warning system is actually short resulted effort. It cannot bring long-term effect. No, I denied. This is the point. This is the anticipatory planning. Early warnings of rising sea levels or prolonged drought can prompt large-scale adaptation projects like building flood-resilient infrastructure, shifting agriculture products to climate-resilient crops, etc., and linking early warnings with long-term adaptation. It is also possible. So we should not consider early warning is a short-term resulted initiative. I think this is the last slide. Next, please. Oh, someone is there. Technology transfer and innovation. Global collaboration, this is very important. Yes, early warning, actually disasters are of cross-border intervention. They don't need any visa. They don't need any passport. So we, the responder, we, the maid agencies should go without border. I think this is the last. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hack. That was a very inspiring story. I think that, achieving the zero casualties, certainly going from what you had experienced in recent decades. And I think some really great examples for other people to consider, empowering some of the most vulnerable communities and also being honest about what's still left to do in terms of the gaps that you still see in reaching then some of the fishermen and so on. So thank you very much for sharing your experience with us. Next then, from Samoa, we have Mr. Salipa Militao, who is a National Technical Support Officer at the Samoa Meteorological Service, and is going to look at the parallel progression of the successes and challenges from a small island perspective. So over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Helen. We share a common understanding that there is no one-size-fits-all approach in going about the early warnings for all. The implementation requires a tailored approach for every country, considering their unique characteristics and local context. I've been invited here today to share some achievements or best practices from my home country, Samoa, during this session. For me personally, I am so grateful for this opportunity, and I would like to thank the donors, organizers, the WMO and the government of the Philippines for such an incredible event. I saw a comment online the other day that says, meteorologist is the only job in the world where you can be constantly wrong and still keep your job. We live in a world marked by an unrelenting pursuit of perfection, accuracy and precision. We live in the same world where meteorology is not considered an exact science, although grounded in scientific principles, but is often heavily criticized when the forecast is either a miss or a false alarm. But there are things that we can be proud of, our efforts and progress, and can take pride in certain accomplishments that we have obtained so far. And here are some of the examples from the Samoa context. Next slide. The mandate and legal framework. Not long ago, the Meteorology Act was passed and enacted by Samoa. It provides a legal framework for the operation and governance of meteorological services in the country. It aims to ensure that Samoa is better prepared for and can effectively respond to weather-related hazards such as tropical cyclones, floods, droughts, and other climate impacts. Then we have the multi-hazard early warning system policy that is to enhance the country's ability to respond effectively to various natural hazards and disasters. Specifically, this policy aims to strengthen disaster preparedness, minimize risk and loss, have a coordinated response, promote resilience, and enhance communication. Next slide. But we cannot do this alone. As a Met Service, we acknowledge that it is difficult and almost impossible to achieve this task independently, particularly when we're talking about end-to-end, people-centric, and reaching the last mile. Our role is to provide scientific data and evidence-based information for decision-making. So we acknowledge the collaboration that we have on the national level that is led by our partner agency, the DMO of Samoa. And I commend the role of Madam Director, DMO, Ms. Molly Nielsen in this room, and her dedicated team of experts. With a relatively small team, they are still capable of achieving their goals. Over the past 5 years, 5 to 7 years, we have developed a strong working relationship and have grown significantly together. The process is easy, as we fall under the same ministry. During the tropical cyclone season, we convene for weekly meetings and briefings. So our well-established working relationships empower us to communicate crucial information to our stakeholders, our partners, in a timely manner. So looking across the region, there is a lot of technical support available, whether it is for capacity building, development of tools and products, maintenance and calibration. Our partners stand ready to support us whenever needed. We maintain a very cooperative and interactive relationship. Next slide. Effective communications. The National Climate Outlook Forum, which brings together stakeholders, our sectors, people with disability, response agencies to discuss the seasonal outlook and its application, and further dive into co-production and partnerships. Our social media. It's one of the components in our early warning service, early warning system chain that the Samoa Met Service can be proud of when we talk about our user engagement. The Samoa Met strives to bridge the gap and the disconnect between knowledge production and the institutional and cultural context where decision-making takes place, translating this technical information in an accessible and more understandable and simplified way, linking the science to actions in a language that can be understood by end users, increasing the level of awareness and elevate the capacity of end users to deal with the misinformation. So we need to ensure that our communication products are designed in a way that is eye-catching and people would like to share. In a quiet period of no alerts, we are constantly posting educational materials, traditional knowledge content, to keep our followers engaged. This community disaster and climate risk management program, the CDCRM, is a community awareness outreach program that is spearheaded by our DMO through the implementation agencies, and the Samoa Met Service is a core member of this exercise. Our intention is not limited to reaching all the villages, but we also strive to sustain these educational programs for as long as we have the necessary financial backing. Next slide. The Met Service is incapable of performing its core duties effectively without appropriate infrastructure that underpins our judgments and validate our alerts to the public. Therefore, we need more robust observational network that's fit for purpose and suitable for our environment. There's been an increase on the number of monitoring stations in the last 10 years, particularly project-based, and there is now confirmed more to come. The tsunami model. In 2022, we've had to deal with some unusual earthquake events caused by an underwater volcanic seamounts to the east of Samoa. And because of the well-established relationship with our regional partners, we were able to develop a tsunami model to simulate a tsunami inundation situation caused by an eruption by this underwater volcano. We were able to find that although this scenario was unrealistic based on its chemistry and historical records, it would still produce some localized but not damaging inundation. This information was critical because it helped us with our community outreach program that we are able to generate tsunami inundation maps. We're able to advise the public on possible strong currents near shore and to stay away from the beach and the shoreline. So despite advancements in some other areas of the service, there is still a lot of work to be done. We've just had one of the most extreme flash flooding events last year that was not associated with a tropical cyclone, where the heavy rainfall was under forecast by our officials. There is no denying that. We received localized rainfall of 315 millimeters in the period of 6 hours. Although the guidance was available, but it wasn't enough. People in this region were not fully prepared and not anticipating this type of event, especially happening in the middle of a dry season, what's supposed to be the dry season. So having a robust ground observation is still not enough. And we need to address this issue. The occurrence of such events, these low predictability but high impact events. Samoa is a country that hasn't experienced a tropical cyclone since 2018, 6 years ago. But it doesn't mean we're not severely impacted. The accumulative costs of these small-scale events in 1 year can add up to more than a TC, a tropical cyclone. So this event alone costs more than $2 million for that small section of the country. Perhaps it will be helpful if we had access to a higher resolution model, a Doppler radar, cell broadcast, common alerting protocol, to name a few. So to improve this area, we have some hope with the implementation of early warnings for all. And with the incoming programs such as the Weather Ready Pacific, the Systematic Observation Financing Facility, and other projects. Next slide. So through the early warnings for all, we are anticipating the improvements of the following. And these are only a few of our expectations. We need to utilize the Weather Ready Pacific as the vehicle to improve our early warning service through improved infrastructure as well as the systematic observation financing facility and other projects. We need to empower our scientists, our forecasters, climatologists, to communicate the science and traditional knowledge effectively. Capacity building opportunities will be important. The implementation of the impact-based forecasting warning system. So there has been initial work done on the design of our impact-based forecasting, but this needs to be streamlined and implemented nationally. We have the platform established for collaboration, but we just need to do more. The community engagement and awareness programs. We need to continue to strengthen the risk communication, practical science, so community will take action through awareness programs. Working together with the private sector, telecommunication companies, and local institution and university will be important as well. Invest national budgets for resources, and government need to raise finance. So government to invest more into our disaster risk reduction efforts. And that's all I have time for, I believe. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thanks, Helen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Silipa, for highlighting the importance of regional as well as the national integration linkages. More importantly, national to community through sort of maybe climate forums and so forth. And since we are slightly behind, so let's quickly move to the next speaker. Now we are moving from seas to the mountainous regions, which is Bhutan in South Asia. So Mr. Karma Dupchu, he is the director of National Center for Hydrology and Meteorology, NCHM in Bhutan, as well as he is the permanent representative of Bhutan with WMO. He will be speaking hydromet early warning services in Bhutan. Over to you, sir.
Very good afternoon. First of all, on the Royal Government of Bhutan, I would like to thank the Government of Philippines and the UNDR, WMO, and all the partners for having invited us and enabling us to participate, and also, of course, WMO for giving us the opportunity to share these experiences. So I will be sharing the experiences of the different hazards we are facing in the mountainous country in Bhutan, and mainly what is our future plan and what we are doing. And first of all, you know that being a mountainous to broadcasting is very difficult. So with the support of the different donors, what are the simple method early warning system we are doing? I think I will share that next. Can you share my presentation slides?
Can you please make sure to have the presentation?
So continue, maybe I think, Bhutan is a carbon neutral, and it's not only neutral, but we are carbon negative. But with the impact of climate change, I think the people of Bhutan also feel the brunt of the climate change. So we also suffer or have problem with the number of hazards. Particularly, we have a mountain and a huge glaciers are melting, and this is a huge hazards. And the mountain hazards in Bhutan, the hazard is not only for Bhutan, but it's a hazard for the downstream. And therefore, I think the early warning system is very important for the Bhutan. And with the support of the donors like JICA and other, we have set up an early warning system in the different basins. And currently, the 3 early warning systems are operational in the 3 basins. And these are not a forecasting system, but our forecast systems are based on the flood detection system. And the good thing in Bhutan is, I think, the closer to the hazard, there is no settlement, so we have enough lead time to issue the warning downstream. And can you go to the next? Next. Yeah, I think these are, I will not go into detail, hazard and risks we are facing. Next. And these are, I think, we have more than 700 glaciers and almost like 600 glacier lakes, out of which 17 has been identified as a potential dangerous lakes. And thus I'm saying that this 17 potential dangerous lakes is not in hazard for Bhutan, it's a hazard for India and a hazard for the downstream. Next. And if you look at the settlement pattern of area in Bhutan, you see most of the settlement Bhutans are along the river. And that's why I think why we need, and how vulnerable we are and why we need early warning. Next. And what we do is, I think, before we establish early warning, we try to do the hazard mapping. And currently our office is doing the nationwide hazard mapping for the whole Bhutan. Next. So this is, I think, we have an early warning system in the 3 basins currently, but we are now trying to expand to the different basins. Next. So these are the systems, along the rivers, and we have warning sirens where we have a community. Next. Next. So, and this is the 24/7 National Flood Warning Operation Centers in Thimphu, where all the information has come to here and we disseminate to the different sectors. Next. So this is, I think, when you come to the communications, I think we have a well-established standing operating procedures where information, how we disseminate at the central level, at the local levels, and then we use different media, social media, to disseminate that information. Next. So in terms of user engagement, particularly our centers, we are looking after 3 sciences: hydrology, meteorology, and the cryosphere, the snow and glaciers part. And government has given a kind of autonomy in terms of operations. So therefore, in order to engagement at the policy at the national level, we have a scientific and technical advisory councils with the members from the energy, disasters management, human resource, public, and also academic. And we almost like a governing board serve us, and so that the needs of the sectors can be incorporated during planning and processes. And of course, as Somo shared, we have the national outlook forums with the climate sensitive sectors. We also conducted a number of the science media forums with the particularly media, because I think it's very important. Maybe I think that came into the yesterday's and before discussions of the importance of how we, understanding of science by the media is very important. Of course, I think before the monsoon onsets, we also carry out the education and awareness, particularly with the local government along the river basins, and of course, the hydropower plants. And besides, I think we also carry out the education and awareness, particularly with the farmers and the extension agents. And since I think youth also came at, I think, again and again, so what we do is, I think, we also promote the youth learning by visiting our hydromet stations, also the flood warning controls, and the climate change. Next. And these are some of the photos. The school children, they come to the control room. We educated them. Even I think small children like to come and listen to through the weather, climate, and next. And of course, I think this is the National Climate Outlook Forums. But one of the things, I think, can you go to the next? In all the pictures, you will see one monk always presenting during the, this is also next. So in Bhutan, I think since most of the farmers are uneducated and they're always believing more to astrology than us. So therefore, we make sure that when we have this National Climate Outlook Forum, we also ask our astrology to present the outlook for 1 year. And then we also present, so we jointly issue the press release, what will be the weather, the weather oxygen outlook for the 1 year. So, next. So of course, I think this mock drill in education is, I think, is a continuous process as we used to do as a part of early warning. Next. And again, I think the collaboration and partnership with academic is, I think, coming again and again. So particularly for our office, I think we closely work with, in terms of particularly doing the research, we work with the universities. And currently, I think we have a MOU signed with the 3 colleges and also the climate sensitive sector Department of Forest. Next. And overall, I think for the future perspective, what we are doing is, I think we have now the hydromet policy of Kingdom of Bhutan, endorsed by the cabinet in 2003. Based on this, I think this will provide the overall strategic direction for the development as well as coordination and partnership. One of the things we are also doing is because our office is also responsible for doing the climate projections of Bhutan. So Bhutan planning, I think, do every 5 years. So we try to produce the climate projections beginning of the plan. So currently, I think we are starting the 13th 5-year plan for 2024 to 29. So we have released, I think, the climate projection report this year, so that the different sector can use this for the planning of their sectors. And based on these policies and the climate projection report, what you have, our office has now developed the institutional strengthening and the roadmap for another 10 years, so that we have with a longer duration strategic plan, based on which, can you go to the next? So currently we are implementing this 13-5-year plan, 2024, and so our plan, we try to, I think it's important to link to national, but also since the data and climate change are the global issues, so we also try to link between the global goals like Sendai framework and the Paris goals and other SDGs. Next. So in summary, I'd just like to mention that Bhutan was the only countries we are able to bring the 3 sciences in the one umbrella. That really helps in the coordinations. And as I said, currently in the mountains country is very difficult to do the broadcasting. Currently our broadcasting is based on a flood detection system. And of course, the communication is, I think, very important, be it, I think, in the pillar 1 or the pillar 2 or pillar 3. And one of the important things, lesson learned we have, particularly for Bhutan for operating early warning system, is very important to have a reliable and a redundant communication systems. Therefore, maybe I think satellite communications will be very important, particularly for remote areas like Nepal and Bhutan. And of course, I think data gap is, I think, one of the big challenges, issues that has been coming out again and again. And particularly for Bhutan and Nepal, like I think we don't have much data in the higher Himalayas. And this is a great challenge for understanding of climate change impact in the mountain area, as well as data for the forecasting. And as I said, since Bhutan is the upstream, so any investment of early warning system is also investment in the downstream for this. So therefore, when we do the cost-benefit analysis for Bhutan, it may be very important that we have to consider the downstream aspects. Next. So that's all from my side, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dupche. I think some really interesting perspectives there, both on the combination of the different sciences within the organisation, but also the challenges with the mountainous terrain in particular, and also then moving towards some of that more indigenous or trusted advice through kind of astrology and combining that with the scientific advice. So thank you very much.
So, so this is the sort of the speaker panel. So before moving into the next session, which is going to be panel discussion, so you can also sit over there. So let's give them like a round of applause again. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so now we are moving into the panel discussion. So you have been listening, like, to our national HIDMET services from different regions, as I was mentioning, countries like, regions like Southeast Asia, South Asia, and the Pacific. And now how they say sort of like, source the early warning they generate and how they try to disseminate to grassroots level. So this session actually panel discussion, so what we are planning actually to listen to the real users, how they use this information to sort of like, take actions at the ground. Though the panel, the previous, the speaker panel was a little bit male dominated, we'll make sure that we'll have well balanced the panel discussion panelists from different regions again. So, so let me introduce the panelist. Again from the Philippines, so we have Mr. Dan Diaz. He's a Sustainable Energy and Enterprise Development for Communities. Then we have from Bangladesh, Mr. Mohammed Abdul Alim, the head of humanitarian program, Action Aid. From Samoa, Ms. Molly Nielsen, Assistant Chief Executive Officer, Disaster Management Office, NDMO. And this time we have from East Asia as well, Mongolia, Ms. Munguntuya. Sorry, I will not pronounce the surname, it's really difficult to pronounce. She is actually the Director Climate Change and Disaster Management from Mongolia Red Cross. And last but not least, from Pacific Disability Forum, we have Ms. Tipola Rabli. She is the Regional Coordinator for Disaster Risk Reduction. So So we can start the discussion. And the first, we have sort of 2 rounds of the questions, the discussions. Maybe depending on the time, so we can decide how it goes, as we are now like almost like 4:25. And the first question is for all of you. And so we also need to be mindful about the time. So we have 3-minute time slot for each one of you. And as you are sort of representing, sort of, you have ground experiences in each and every country where you are representing. So can you tell us like how are early warnings received on time, as well as effectively disseminated within the community? So when you are highlighting that one, so please tell us the success stories where a warning has effectively reduced the life and damages. I'll start with the Philippines, Mr. Dan Diaz. So over to you. So,
thank you, Sinaka. Everyone knows that the Philippines is more than 7,600 islands. So we have geographically isolated, disadvantaged areas. Cities don't have problems with early warnings. But when you think about remote islands, how you be able to communicate with no electricity, with no reach of data or signal, right? So the role here really is the local government. For example, in the case of Lapu-Lapu City, we have been helping, collaborating. So the success story is community-based disaster risk is important. You have to empower local government, telling them like 5 days from the forecast, and then 3 days they go there with relief, evacuate people. And the good thing is, in the Philippines, we have incorporated the disaster risk reduction coordinator in the school. So that children already are aware of that. And in the Odette came in 3 years ago, 2021 of December. That island, Caubian, there was no casualty. 3 days before the LGU went, then the kids are the one crying, bringing their parents to move from the island. So they are more aware, and the communication is this: we have to evacuate because we will be picked up in different sea areas if we don't evacuate. So half went out, the communication was clear, and there's a safe school building where they were, those who remained because of livelihood, etc., they stay there. So the good news is, working with schools, even children, knows about disasters, and they help these parents evacuate.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't think we can underestimate the value of that education and the support that they can provide. So thank you. The same question to you, Mr. Aleem. So you're from ActionAid in Bangladesh. What's your experience there?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for giving this opportunity. As you all know, that Bangladesh is geographically located in a position where, I mean, all the cyclones hits Bangladesh, what is formed in Bay of Bengal. And the other way, the Bangladesh is lower riparian of receiving the water from numbers of rivers which is coming through from China, from Bhutan, India and other parts. So, and all those crossing through Bangladesh to down to the Bay of Bengal, you know. So if we talk about the early warning, then it's, we should consider the early warning for cyclone, and then early warning for flood, early warning for landslide, and all other, and there are other issues as well. So in terms of success in our country, we can proudly mention, as the presentation from our government part, on the success of CPP program, which is on the cyclone early warning dissemination. So the main success is, the reason behind this main success is engaging the community. As he mentioned that there are more than around 100,000 volunteers we develop around the coastal areas, and 50% of them are female. So you can see the community engagement and covering the intersections, and that gives the success of life-saving, as it is the last cyclone, it was 0, you know, from 7 digit to 0 within these 40 years. So that is obviously a great success in terms of life-saving. But from community perspective, I would mention that what about the asset? As the main objective is to save the life and assets. But we could not achieve that much to save the assets because we cannot remove the asset from the vulnerable areas. And why this area is vulnerable? First of all, the fragile infrastructure we have in the coastal area is embankment. Those are bridging that developed, established back in 60s. And then climate change is another issue. I mean, the rainfall pattern which is really, in a way, impossible for our environment, our geography to adapt to it. And that is cyclone part, but still, I mean, saving the life is a huge achievement for us. But again, what about the flood? We have very strong forecast. We are disseminating 10 days forecast, which is very much acceptable. But the challenge here is it is not reaching to the last mile community, and particularly for different livelihood groups. So though our early warning system developing and decoding that early warning for different livelihood groups by the departments, and that's being disseminated, but not reaching to the community in that way. That way it is reaching in case of cyclone. Because we could not use that learning of cyclones. I mean, the CPP program, we don't have like that flood preparedness program. That way we have the cyclone. So still we need to work there, that how we can develop our program in that way. The third point I would like to mention that one main challenge we are facing again in terms of, I mean, transboundary issues, transboundary river issues, whether we are sharing the information, is a data related to weather, and also the same way the information on the river management, and the upstream river, how they are managing. And the recent flood we are still fighting, and that is due to, there are huge relation with the climate change and also transboundary river relations. So our success, yes, we have very good mechanism, but success is depending on and many other issues what we need to work on regionally, I think. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abdul Alim. So, highlighting the success stories, of course, the CPP program as well as the other technological advancement in the region as well as in the country, so led to this type of success. And so I was trying to understand from Bola cyclone, 500,000 to now 0, which is really interesting and amazing. So with that, so we can move to the next, the panelist, Ms. Molly Nelson. The same question to you. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. I had to write my answer. Otherwise, I can go on and on and on about it. So for Samoa, early warning systems are a mixture of technology and traditional knowledge and mechanisms. So receiving and dissemination of warnings through multiple channels and platforms, such as SMS messaging, the text messaging, the social media, the local media, the television, the radios, the emergency sirens, systems that we have, the mobile applications, the ringing of bells, etc. There's also community engagement. We need to involve the community in the dissemination of warnings so they can respond appropriately. Education and simulations, we need to conduct regular trainings and simulations and drills to help communities understand the warning systems in place and what actions to take. When people know what to expect, they are more likely to respond quickly and effectively. Warnings also must be very clear, the bulletins, simple and straightforward and action-oriented. We work really close with our meteorology office with reviewing of our bulletins, translating of our bulletins, natural hazards that goes out to our people. Close collaboration and partnership with our NGOs, our civil society organization, and our faith-based organizations as well, and local entities. They can amplify the reach of early warnings and ensure messages are disseminated through trusted channels and platforms. monitoring and evaluating the effectiveness of early warning system is very critical, and making adjustments based on community needs and feedback to ensure that the system remains relevant and effective. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. I think that's that classic thing that a forecast is only useful if it's effectively communicated. So I think you've highlighted that really, really nicely, and also adaptive then to the communities that it serves. So thank you for that. Ms. Mungatua, so from a Mongolian perspective, how does this question resonate with your experience on the ground?
Thank you. So in terms of Mongolia, as you probably know, that one of the most common and most severe weather event is the Jut, or the cold wave. So from the National Met Office, every year in October and November, government releases the risk map to look at how the winter is going to look like in coming months. And we use this information to work with our herder communities, disseminating the weather forecast information in order for them to be well prepared. And as for the Red Cross, we've been working with our partners to develop our early action protocols to take the anticipatory action, and working when there is a high risk areas identified. We release the early funding, cash grants, and animal care kits to the herder communities, the vulnerable community members, to help them to protect their livelihood. Herder communities solely depend on their livestock for their income. So it's really important for both Red Cross and the national authorities working together to protect the livelihood of these herder communities. And we provide cash assistance, animal care kits, and we have some cases we have seen that this early assistance that we are providing based on this risk map is helping the herder communities to reduce the destitution of the sales of their products, and then also help them to increase the survival rate of the offsprings, and helping them to protect their livelihoods to overcome and be well prepared. And of course, the drought itself is also linked to the drought situation during summertime. So we work closely with the community members and volunteers to monitor the summer situation, and that way we will be able to predict the upcoming weather forecast information, disseminating it to the herder communities as early as possible.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Muguntua. And it's interesting to know, the risks maps that we have been developing, because you have been working with the grassroots level community. So that's interesting to know that you have been helping them in this regard. So with that, so we can move to Ms. Tepola Rabuli, the same question. Yeah, please take 3 minutes. Yeah.
Thank you. Buluvinaka, and I'm represent the Pacific Disability Forum. However, I'm not a person with disability, but it's a privilege to be sitting here and representing the 1.7 million persons with disability across the Pacific. To answer your questions, we work in 22 countries in the Pacific. At the national level, we have our organizations of persons with disability who we partner with in carrying out the work that we currently do around the area of DRR and climate change. And one of the stories that keeps coming out of our OPDs is the challenges in the early warning system. When we look at the disability sector, we look at the different impairments within the disability sector. And the challenges in the early warning system is the messages coming out of the MET services, because it's not simplified for our members to be able to understand. However, there's work that our OPDs are currently doing at the national level, working with the MET service, for example, in Solomon Islands, the MET service in Solomon Islands, working with the persons with disability, our organization of persons with disability, in simplifying those messages for our members to be able to understand. And that is one of the work that we're currently doing through the projects that we have that is funded by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Trade New Zealand, and the AHP partners, the Australian humanitarian partners. When we talk about simplifying the messages for our members, it means the different impairments need to be simplified, which means messages for a deaf will be different from messages for those who have vision impairment. And it also differs for those who have psychological and intellectual disability. So when we talk about deaf, when we talk about messages, what currently Solomon Island is doing at the moment is using color coding for messages on the impact warning that is being given out. So there's a green color-coded, and there's red, and there's orange, and there's yellow. It simplifies, it differentiates the different warnings given out at different specific times by the Met Office. And then when we talk about vision impairment, and then we have to simplify that messages further for those who have vision impairment. You put your shoe for somebody who was born blind, and then who don't know where the north, or when you talk about southeasterly winds, how do you simplify that messages when it's coming out of the Met Office for those who have vision impairment to be able to understand? So that is currently the work that we're doing with our OPDs. And it goes out into the community level where the community-based or the emergency committee will be able to translate what Solomon Island is currently doing, to translate into local language before it's further translated for our members at the community level to be able for them to understand. And just a success story, one of the things that we're currently working on is last year, the PDF secretary was invited to present at the PMC, the Pacific Met Council meeting in August in Sofitel. I believe OFA was part of that meeting where we did presentations just to highlight the challenges of our persons with disability. And one of the most powerful advocacy tools that we used is sharing the lived experience of persons with disability during disaster. And from that meeting, there were overwhelming recommendations and commitment from Pacific Island countries, more than 10 Pacific Island countries, to be committed on developing a specific weather product across the Pacific Island countries for persons with disability. And that is currently the work that we are currently doing. I think we're going to pilot that in Kiribati in partnership with SPREP and the South Pacific Regional Environment Program. And now moving to the national level to be able that all Met offices will be able to develop a specific weather product for persons with disability at the national level. But currently at the community level, that is currently what our OPDs are working with at the moment to be able to simplify the messages for our members across the region. Thank you.
Great. I think some really exciting examples there and pilots to come. We look forward to seeing the outcomes of those. But I think so important, those examples and experiences that you've highlighted there for us to consider, from the Met perspective as well of how we reach those groups. So thank you. That's the first kind of round of panels questions in terms of how the warnings work and reach your communities. But obviously the organisations that you're working with as well and the role in amplifying and kind of extending that. So Mr. Ali, maybe briefly, given our kind of pressures on time, but from your experience of working with those at-risk communities in Bangladesh, what role do you think that an organisation like ActionAid plays or could play in bringing together and supporting both the government and the communities towards the achievement of early warning for all within the ambitious time frame?
Thank you. A very important question. I'm happy to respond to that. Community, that early warning is for the community. So this is very important how we engage them. So from ActionAid, we believe that they have to be in all stages of it, from designing warning, for decoding the warning, and for disseminating and designing the impact response as well. So from that perspective, the way ActionAid works, and we believe we should work being an NGO, that firstly, awareness raising in the community. All sections of the community should be covered by this awareness raising on the, the school students, children, and different sections of the community from all aspects, and how they are sensitized on that. That is very important for the success of early warning. And then what we do, that we engage community for early warning dissemination in their language, in their ways, and the way they would like to decode it, that early warning, and for their particularly for their livelihood interest. And that is very much important. Second thing is, third thing is, the leadership of early warning dissemination. As we see the success of our CPP program, because there are 50% women volunteers are disseminating the warning. So how we can disseminate, engage the women and young people, particularly we will give emphasis in our current context that young people in our country is, having a very good role in terms of reforming and other things. So their role also very important, that how we can, and we are piloting on that, and even for disseminating the early warning and also taking the early action in the community. And finally, when a community are engaged and working on that, and they are having their experience, whether it's good or bad, and how we are accumulating that learning from that. And that needs to be communicated with the departments, the line department who are decoding the early warning for different livelihood group, different sectors. At the same time, the agency who are generating the early warning. So that needs to go back to this channel where NGO like ActionAid and other organizations who are working closely with the community, they can connect that with that. And we believe that there should be dialogue in the community where the government representative should be there to know the direct impact and direct experience of the community and how that could be reflected in the policy and refining or fine-tuning the early warning. And in terms of dissemination, there is no other way to engage the community. If we cannot engage all section of the community, early warning will not be succeed anyway, because they will not be using that. So yeah, so community engagement will get more emphasis, and yes, we will work on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abdul Alim. So interesting to hear few words. So engage, synthesize, and then decoding. So decoding as well, that's also, you highlighted the importance of getting engaged the community to do these type of things, and then that will lead to success of the dissemination of early warning as well as to take action by the communities. Thank you very much. And now let's move to Mr. Dan Diaz. Okay, now today, a little while ago during the panel, the speakers, we were hearing about Pagasa, in particular IVFW efforts, and then they were able to implement, they piloted, then they implement. So from your experience as working with the community, then how do you how do you have any recommendation to sort of improve how it was? Was it useful? If it is not, of course, what are the recommendations that you could provide to Pagasa in order to improve the IVFW efforts?
Yes. So the disaster command centers from the local government are very effective in place, right? So in the information for this to impact in terms of calamities, like mostly in the coastal areas are typhoons, strong surge, right? So there's a need to have a resilient infrastructure, and it has to be participatory in the design. So we don't have to be expert. We have to consult where to put the storage area, for example, the dikes, and we don't have to cheapen the quality of the infrastructure. So we know that there's always the corruption, but we have to make sure that it's really done well and assure that it's good quality. And in that case, what are other natural preventions? It's not just creating a dikes. It should also be, in a sense, prepared that we have to put maybe the natural barriers for storm surge, right? Clearly, the communications from the LGU to the community, whether mountain or the island, has to be stated vernacularly, simple. We have to evacuate now because the water will rise at this height. So that should be clear. And people with disabilities, seniors with children, has to be forcibly evacuated. And that is important in the first response. And the good thing is, we don't have to burden the local government in evacuation center. Think out of the box. Like the case of LGU, they bring them to their relatives. They are providing assistance so that they don't be in that in that one space altogether, right? If there's disaster, for example, fire, they don't have to, they're given like money to rent a certain month. So, and that way we can also manage well our resources and people. And also in terms of solar, putting up solar communications, in any disaster, the problem is no electricity, no importance of batteries, importance of renewable energy, and resilient in a sense in the design, disaster-proof. So for us here altogether, wants to help these island communities and mountain areas, resilient infrastructure, go back to our basic support for the natural way to protect us, the indigenous wisdom of the community, where to put them. And with our cooperations, we have to expand. Like just this morning, I'll wrap this up. I talked to the local government, DRR of Lapu-Lapu. It's a city, but the Visayas area, we have many islets beyond the municipality. So we are now developing next year to share to small islets that has problems, because when 2 years ago there was the super typhoon, they had calamities, there were deaths. So they had that learning, that knowledge. Now we will come up with a network of these small islets in the Visayas to prevent death and to be prepared.
Thank you very much. I think some excellent thoughts and suggestions there, and also about being, I guess, kept aware of some of those maybe nature-based solutions, so that's obviously going to change the vulnerability of areas, hopefully, as those, embed themselves. So how we then adapt the impact warnings then to take account of some of those mitigations as well. Thank you very much. Miss Molly, then to you. So from your perspective, working with National Met Services and NDMOs, how do you think their outreach and end-user engagement could be enhanced? And can the Early Warning for All initiative help with this, including, say, the Weather Ready Pacific and the activities under that?
Thank you for the question. There are many ways, many strategies that the two offices can enhance their outreach and engagement. To name a few, we continue to improve and strengthen our community partnership to train them, the community members, and to make them aware of all the systems and all the information and all the alerts that we have in place at the national level. We tailored communication strategies with the information and the language to be accessible to our people. We utilize technology effectively by developing user-friendly mobile applications, our websites, our social media, our emergency siren systems, and etc. Our educational resources, the creation of easy to understand materials and visual communications inclusive to all our people. The establishment of a feedback community to understand their needs and perceptions regarding warnings and weather. The continued engagement, partnership, collaboration amongst each other, the two offices, the response agencies, the stakeholders, as well as the community themselves. Leverage data and analytics to assess which communication strategies are most effective and adjust outreach and awareness programs. We analyze the data from the Meteorology Office and our DRR people to predict which communities may be at higher risk during certain events and target those communities with proactive messages. We work really close with our Meteorology Office, as they are the National Warning Center for all natural hazards in our country. In preparedness, we implement and work really close with the implementation of our community disaster and climate risk management program. It's a multi-stakeholder and inclusive approach to our people. So the two initiatives, the Weather Ready and the Early Warning for All, can help to support, upgrade, enhance, and improve all these activities and priorities for all countries that are beneficiaries. For Samoa, we have a multi-hazard early warning system policy in place, and we have just completed a national information communication capacity assessment. The Weather Ready and the Early Warning for All initiatives can support the implementation of these. Fafitai Tele, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Molly, and highlighting the importance of some of the user kind of like mobile applications and education materials to educate them. So since the time is very short, so I'll quickly move into the next question, which is going to be to Ms. Tepola, probably to you. In your experience, how do you engage as well as build capacity and empower women as well as people who are differently able people and the poor from the start, so that actionable warning based on impact-based forecasting reach these and other population growth groups with specific vulnerabilities. So it's kind of like turning last mile into the first mile, which we have been discussing so far. So over to you.
Thank you, thank you. One of the work that we're currently doing at the Secretariat with our OPDs is the establishment of the Disability Resource Team within our OPDs across the Pacific, but we're currently just starting the work on that. And Disability Resource Team consists of persons with disability of different impairments, where we trained our DRTs on disability inclusive in DRR, CRPD, the Disability Act and the Disaster Management Act within the Pacific Island countries they come from. The reason for doing this is for persons with disability themselves to understand what their needs are and what their rights are in terms of advocacy before they actually go out into the community to be able to train the communities and national humanitarian partners. And that is currently what we're doing across the region in Solomon, Vanuatu, Fiji, PNG, Timor-Leste, Tonga, Cook Island, and Samoa. And we can see the success coming out of that is because persons with disability themselves, when we talk about inclusion in DRR and climate change, is for them to stand in that spaces and be able to share their lived experiences. And I think one of the successes of this is the engagement of NOLA in Samoa and also being able to, for the Samoan, the NDMO, for the Community Disaster Climate Risk Program that they're currently running in the communities, and be able to include NOLA in that process to be able to go out into the community and to highlight the needs of persons with disability, what their needs actually is. Because it's not really, when we're looking at the perspective from the outside, it's different from what it means for persons with disability themselves, when they share that experiences of what it means to be blind and to be stranded, and what it means to be physically impaired in a wheelchair and not being able to go to the evacuation center because the safety for them is not, it's not in the evacuation center, but in their own homes. So that is what we're currently doing in the establishment of the DRTs and being able to work with national humanitarian partners at the national level to be able to train national humanitarian partners. And when we do that, we see the success story coming out of national humanitarian partners, for them telling us that now we know when we talk about inclusion in DRR, what it means for persons with disability themselves not included. Now we hear about the word inclusions in national and regional platform, but not until you hear from persons with disability themselves, and you'll be able to understand what it means to be included, and what it means that you're not talking about inclusion, that they are not included in the space. So that is what we're currently doing in the establishment of the Disability Resource Team, where we train our OPDs, our persons with disability in Pacific Island country, for them to be able to go out and to train national humanitarian partners, and also be able to advocate at community level that they need to be also in the emergency committee, where women and youth and young people are in that community, but also include persons with disability themselves in that community to be able to participate in the disability inclusion in DRR at community level and also at national level.
Thank you very much. So since the time is up, actually as per the agenda, so we should give some time for you to, ask questions. But we are now informed that we should be finishing by sharp 5 because it's going to be like closing ceremony from 5 to 6. So with that, sorry for that. And then we can probably close this session like that. So we were trying to sort of initiate the discussion with the source agencies, which is basically national meteorological and hydrological organizations, and of course with the end users, the users I mean, from national to the local level, and to understand from different regions how they are working, what are the sort of success stories, the lesson learned, so that everybody in the room, so maybe beyond the room, of course, we can learn. So the impact wave forecasting and wording, which WMO has been promoting since 2015, if I'm not mistaken. So now slowly it is getting into the action. So Pagasa is a good example from this region. We have been hearing from other regions. For example, we know that Indonesia has been practicing on. So Helen from UK Met Office, they have been doing in other regions as well, and then helping the other regions like Africa and so on and so forth. So this will, session closes now, and the recommendations that the hearing that we are getting from the speakers as well as the panelists. So this will feed into the sort of next level, which is going to be the global platform 2025 in Geneva, hopefully, and then other forums as well. So with that, I conclude this session, as well as thanks all the panelists as well as the speakers, and to you as well for being with us to the last minute. Thank you. Thank you very much.